What's up, everybody? This is a Frontier Harvest Ministries production, and we're back in the studio here at Apostles Corner, episode 129. This is going to be a Thailand, Taiwan rewind. We just got back from a 2-month trip. Good to go. It's good to come back. My name's Jared Lenhart. I'm your host, and it's good to be back in the studio. Like I said, it's been 2 months since we've been back, and I want to use this time to just update everybody about what's going on, what we did, how our trip went, and it went phenomenal. It was a wonderful time, a good time of reconnecting with family on that side of the world from my wife's side, and just connecting with friends, co-workers in the body of Christ, and new friends as well. So it's just so good to be back in the studio, like I said. And we just got back as a family, me and my family, and Isaac, Roscher, and Abigail. Isaac's the co-host of the show, but they just took off to Vietnam, and we'll be talking about this a little more towards the end of the show. But they just got there, and be praying for them. And they're going to be there for the next 2 weeks, so we'll have a lot of mission updates, a lot of travel in the beginning of this year, and we're just so grateful. We're planning 2 trips to Vietnam a year. If you want to ever go on a mission trip, you can get in contact with us. Scan the QR code there, go to our website. There's plenty of contact information, and we could plan something out. We take trips over there to Southeast Asia. You name the country where you want to go, and we can make it happen as long as it's in Southeast Asia somewhere or East Asia. But I don't believe in purgatory, but I do believe in jet lag purgatory. And when you're traveling from Asia coming back over here, that 12-hour difference, on a plane for 12 hours, 24 hours of travel. When you hit the ground, it's rough to come out of that jet lag, but we're making out of it. We're making it out of jet lag today. And I think this week was our breakthrough week. But I just want to talk to you about Thailand. We left in March, beginning of March. And Thailand, when you think of the nation of Thailand, you think about the beaches, the tourism, the nice views, the nice locations, the good food, the night markets. But behind all that is idolatry and not ancestor worship, but a lot of idol worship, a lot of spirits and people just lost it's an unreached country, all right? And what that means is the population of the entire country is less than 2% evangelical Christian. As a matter of fact, Thailand is 1%, less than 1% evangelical Christian. So there's 109 people groups within Thailand, and 95 of those people groups are considered unreached. So, when you think about Thailand, maybe you just think about the Thai people, but there's outside of the Thai people, there's 108 other people groups that are distinct with their own cultures, their own language, their own, way of life, and the different things they worship. And in Thailand, there's 95 of those people groups who are still unreached. A majority being the Thai people who are the hardest to get to, because a lot of the missionaries in the past have, they landed in the north, up near China, up near the border of Burma, and a lot of the tribal people groups live in the north. So many missionaries back in the day went there, and many of them are reached now. The ones that are reached are mostly the hill tribes, the people up in the hills, like the Lisu, the Karen, the Kachin, and other Aka, and other people groups that live in the north, right? And I'll talk a little bit about that, certain families, different ministries that are in Thailand right now, because it's a great place for missions to get your feet wet, to go on short-term and long-term trips, to get the reality of what missions is, living around people groups, but you're still not in a real hostile environment, maybe like you would be in China or Burma or maybe Vietnam. Yeah, yeah. But it's a good place to just get there on the ground and see what it's like to be in missions, go to the villages, serve different ministries, serve in the cities. And there's all kinds of service, different kind of mission works going on. So we hit the ground in Thailand, and we landed in Bangkok, Thailand. The first thing we did was landed in Bangkok for 2 weeks, and my mom-in-law, my sister-in-law, and different cousins came over from Myanmar to visit us in Burma, or in Bangkok, in Thailand for 2 weeks. And, we hit up the shopping malls, had good family time, And of course, while we were there, I had our guys from the mainland come down and visit us. And I'm not going to show their faces, but these are the two initiatives we have going on in the mainland, the Quest and the Hidden Initiative. Between these two initiatives, it would be 161 new groups on our list, on our people group list. So in the last 40 years, 4 decades living on the field, we've seen over 56 people groups with churches planted, disciples, training centers. And it's really the second, third, fourth, even fifth generation of Christians now coming out and rising up to do the work. The guys that my mom and dad mentored, the first, the second generation, they're behind it all, working it, and now the next generations are going, including my generation now coming up. So it's a big family network. They're not just team members on our team at Frontier Harvest Ministries, but we're a family. We're people that we've grown up with together. I've been on their backs and they've carried me up mountains. My little brother and me, they watched me grow up. I've watched their kids growing up. Now they're watching my kids grow up. So the gospel, church planting is a generational, um, it's a generational work if we want to make a legacy. And we're not building on our family legacy. We're building on Jesus Christ's legacy. So when we go into these places, when we strategize, when we do things like the Quest or the Hidden Initiative, when we make these plans a part of our plans, they're God's plans. Why? Because God's desire is that none would perish and all would come to the everlasting life. They would come to the knowledge of the Father. So if we make that our desire, our will, and we push toward those things, we make those plans, according to God's will, He will make a way to see to it that these people groups are saved. And we just are obedient and say, Lord, here we are, send us. We have the strategies, but if you're going to thrust us, if you want us to go now, we're available, Lord. And that availability, being willing and able, that brings apostolic breakthrough work in certain places. You could plan all you want, years and years. Many people plan for years and they never end up going. So it does take an aspect of being apostolic and going out and being pioneering. Not everybody's called to that. I'm going to be honest, not everyone's called to that. But if you are, then just step right into it. Find ministries that are doing it and serve, and don't keep praying about certain things when really God's just waiting for you to step in, right? So when you step in, things happen. You activate that faith, that gift of faith, and the Lord begins to move on your behalf when you're going, when you're active, because our God's a going God. So after Bangkok, we went up to Thailand, to Chiang Mai, Thailand. And man, there's so many memories there, so many different missionaries that live there, people that I grew up knowing, like on the left, Brother David Joannis. There's me and my little brother with Brother Dave. We were little tykes back then, but he was also a young whippersnapper too on the mission field. But now we're getting older, and now I'm like the age he was when he knew me as a little kid, right? Now he's got his kids, they're serving, they got their ministry. So we were able to meet their family, the Joannis family, Dave and Lorna Joannis. And I was actually able to get on their podcast, Mission Pulse. So I'll put the link in the description below. But they got a ministry there. They got a hostel, a coffee shop, a mission sending center. They host short-term teams from America, from Philippines, from around the world, really. And they've really developed that into something great. And it's a sending center to go out into the hill tribes of outside of Chiang Mai. Let people, let churches, let missionaries, let young people come in to see the reality of what's going on the mission field. And that's why I think Thailand's such a strategic place to go and to do that and get connected. And another wonderful couple that we met who we've known, but we work in different fields, is the Morris family. And here behind them all these flowers, you got Nung Sar Morris and Johnny Morris. I was able to speak at a Lisu church. They opened a door for me to go in there and speak at one of their churches. And Brother Johnny Morris translated for me. And it was just an honor because my parents used to talk. My voice cracked. My parents used to talk about their stories all the time. And we would talk about the Lisu people and how they grew up in China. Brother Johnny Morris's family, his father grew up in Kunming, China, where I grew up. and he even went to Kunming University to study language and all kinds of other things. Their family is really gifted with language. And then Johnny grew up among all types of different tribal peoples. I mean, I think he speaks like eight. They both, Johnny and his wife Nungsar, they both speak eight languages, and they've translated many of those languages into the Bible today, and in Rawang and Lisu, and probably countless others that I can't name. But it was just an honor to be with them, and to see that generation. He's the fourth generation of missionaries serving on the field. He's 70 over years old now, and just a general for the gospel. So it was cool to talk with them, and like, talk about the stories that my parents talked to me about, and I was able to talk to them personally about it. We got to meet several times, and just really that connection, man. And it was so fresh to be able to meet these people, because in my mind I knew them as a child, but they only knew my parents and never really knew me. They just knew me as a kid. So it's just good to go back and get to meet everybody as an adult now. And then we have brother Andy Hamilton. And he was a football star back in I don't know what year it was, in the 70s and the 60s maybe. I sorry, brother Andy, if I'm making you older than what you really are. But he was back in the Terry Bradshaw days, and another star quarterback during that era. But they all used to work out, brother Andy and those two quarterbacks. And Andy went to LSU, Louisiana State University, I think that is, and then was drafted into the NFL. I think he played for the Kansas City Chiefs and the St. Louis for a little bit down in New Orleans. But and then he eventually, later on in his life, him and his wife became missionaries, gave their life to the Lord at a young age. He was already speaking to many youth on college campuses, and different athletes, and encouraging them, putting purpose behind athletics, knowing about the gospel, and using what your talents to serve the Lord. And then later in his life, like in his 50s or 40s, they moved into China, and that's where my family got to meet him. And my dad would go to the gym, and they would work out together every week. He was my dad's coach. My dad called him coach. And then my dad told me they would talk about doctrine and weightlifting and football while they were there. And it was just so good. And that's another person that knew me as a child. But now I could go back and revisit and just go talk. We ate at a good Western steakhouse, right there in Chiang Mai on the river there. And he got to meet my family and pray for us. And it's just so encouraging to be around the older generation and to learn from them and know what they have and gone through, and take what they've learned, and we can use it and apply it in our life today. Brother Andy, like you said, keep prayer a part of your life. Keep God a part of your life. Keep the main thing, the thing. Keep your wife a part of your life. Don't lose your relationship with one another, but keep that fire for one another. So often he's seen many ministers drift away from relationships with one another, with their spouses, and he was warning me about all these things, and then talking about my dad. And when he talked, I just couldn't help but shedding tears and cry about it. Even right now, thinking about it. But just being able to be encouraged like that and built up. This was a real trip of like healing and reconnecting, and just it's not like I was depressed, but my dad had just passed away. So it was just good to just get through that with our family. And the greatest highlight was being together with my family, my sisters-in-law, my mom-in-law, my wife, my kids. Just travel for 2 months together. This is really what learning is all about. There's classroom learning, but when you really want to learn about the world and life, you go out there and do it. You take your kids, you take your family, and you live life on mission together. And that's when they're going to see the world. That's how they're going to grow naturally and see you in action as a parent, doing missions, praying, and asking. And they'll ask all these questions, why? Just like my 5-year-old's doing now. But my wife hasn't seen her mom for 3 years, so that we got everybody together. We were traveling through Thailand all together the whole entire time. And we went up to the north in Thailand. There's another couple we met, Bill and Susie Antalik. And they run a children's home there. It's a school for schools for kids to come and live, and they can go to school around the community. And it's like It's a hotel for kids that go to school, basically. There's a word for that, and I'm just missing it right now. But they were so generous to host us there and take us around and show us. They've been living there for 2 decades now, serving the people and watching different generations of kids graduating, going off to college, getting a job, serving in the ministry, and they just keep seeing kids rotating through that schoolhouse. So be praying for them. And they took us up to the Golden Triangle, where right now China, it's the border of Laos, Burma, and Thailand, and China's only 40 kilometers away from all that. But there you have all that drug going on, that opium trade, fentanyl trade, those scam centers that are right across the border from this lookout that we were at. Right behind it, you can see those scam centers in Burma and in Cambodia. And people end up getting kidnapped, put into those places, and forced to do phone scams. And they have to reach a certain quota. They get their phones taken away, and many people actually go to look for a job there because the job they get there, they can make more money than what they would in Burma. $2 a day or whatever. But they get stuck into these places, and many women get stuck into sex trafficking. They'll take your ID, and you're a slave. You're a modern day slave in those places. There's thousands of foreigners who've been lied to. They land in Thailand and they get kidnapped and taken right to the border, and everything, their passports, their phones, their way of contact, and they're just put into this country, into these places, and they're forced to do these things. They're whole buildings that are run by the government with military security forces. And inside, it's like a whole city. They have the canteens, they have the rooms. Sometimes they'll have whole buildings. In Burma, I've been to them, a whole hotel, brand new hotel, and you go in there and you can't get a room. But there's nobody there. It's like there's no cars in the parking lot. No one's there, but all the rooms are booked out. Why? Because they're scam centers, and there's people in all those rooms with computers, and everybody just lives in there, and they're not allowed to come out, and you're not allowed to go in as a guest, as a new guest. Maybe they'll have one section with like one floor, with those rooms, but every other floor is all locked off and shut down, and it's like, what the heck's going on here? But in many Southeast Asian countries, that's what's going on, and then they call all around the world and scam people. So, um, yeah, anyways, we were up in Golden Triangle. That's where I took my family. What a wonderful place to take your family. But we were together the whole entire time. At the last leg of the trip, we went to the beach, spent about 10 days there, and we're just recuperated. And after Thailand, it was a 2-month journey in Thailand. We dropped into Taiwan, and we weren't even planning this. And this is the roots. This is where Frontier Harvest Ministries started its work. Originally, my mom and dad joined a ministry there, and things fell through, and my mom and dad started to study Chinese. They were studying Chinese through that, and then they studied it to a point where they had it. They could share their testimony, and they went off and moved into China, and that was in 1991 when they moved into China. But from 1989 to 1991, they lived in Taiwan in the city, and they went to this exact college right here where it was a Mandarin training center. I think they called it I forget the name already, but we were able to walk through the halls, and I can't see the words there, they're too small. Walk through the halls of this college, and this is exactly the same place my dad went to every day to study Chinese. He didn't go to this college to learn, but he went to this learning center to learn Mandarin. He wasn't like in college full time, but and we walked through the halls, prayed, just got to see the same sights and sounds. My dad always talked about Taiwan and the Taiwanese beef noodles, driving mom around on his little Yamaha 150cc Yamaha motorcycle. So we got to walk through those streets, meet up with new friends and some old friends. So it was a well needed time. And then while we were there, didn't even plan it. It was my dad's birthday, May 6th. So on his birthday, that's when we went to the college. We got the beef noodles, and we walked through different parks, cried together as a family, laughed, reminisced about the good old times. And it was a real time of healing for us. And, we're ready. We're back. We're ready to take on what's ahead of us. We were gone for so long. It was like, okay, time to go home now. We're ready to go back. Even though we miss our family, we want to make it a point to have our family from America go to Asia at least once a year together. So be praying that could happen. And I'm gonna talk about Vietnam because this is the latest. Our team just arrived into Vietnam. In the next 2 weeks, they'll be back. So we'll have more mission reports for you. And Vietnam is still a communist country. But when you land there, we really have the feeling that it's an open window now to serve in that country. And when God gives those windows of opportunity to serve, it's important that we jump through them and take those opportunities. Because if we wouldn't have done that in China or Burma, today we wouldn't have the work that we've developed. And it would have been like, oh, we could have, we should have. So let that not be a part of what you say in the future is, I should have done this. I could have done this. We were praying about it. God wanted me to do it, but I didn't do it. So when you get that feeling in your heart to go, just go and do it. And the Lord will lead. And that's something that we're doing in Vietnam. And the Lord is leading our team on the ground. There's some prayer points there. And they're going to be going through, they already went through a lot getting there. They went to the airport. The airline said our tickets didn't exist, which they did. And they had to reschedule the booking. They were able to get a flight that night. But then when they landed on the ground in Vietnam, they got there too early, and their visa, they had to wait in the airport till like the next day until the visa was valid. So they just stayed in the airport for about 12 hours after a 12-hour trip. And then now they're finally out and they're at the main venue, and their training is going to be starting this coming week. So Sunday they're going to be going to a couple of churches and preaching, and then they're going to have a training that's coming up where they'll be equipping different leaders, just sharing testimony, sharing church structure, strategy, and just connecting with leaders on the ground. And our objective is to form a apostolic team on the ground that we can continue to send every month, every year to different places to find out in Vietnam where the unreached places are, where the pressure points are, and where the gospel is truly needed, right? Where there's no access. That's the whole point of reaching unreached areas is, we have work in the city, but people in the cities need to go out to the places where there's less access to the gospel, where there's nobody going, and the church needs to send. Once you get to a certain point, you have enough people, let's start sending now and not get stuck in our comfort zones. And that's where we come in as mission seals, as men of the dirt, to get on the ground and go in there and break through, prayer walk and break the bondage over the people. Find those families of peace and continue to develop those homes. And then as our teams are traveling this year, we started up a chicken coop startup business. And this is specifically for families of peace, families who are ministers, who need a little bit of startup cash to generate more revenue. Because again, Vietnam's economy is not so good. And any little bit helps. So for $1,000, we've been able to help one family, a minister and his family, for buying like 300 little chicks like you see there, an incubator, build a little chicken coop, buy enough feed to get the chickens to grow to a point where you could sell them. And that's enough startup money to generate more revenue, to buy more chickens, to sell the chickens, or maybe start up a little, Vietnam Kentucky Fried Chicken, some barbecue chicken or whatever. So be praying for us in this aspect because it's in the development process. Right now we have 3 families that we started this year. So the team is going to go, they're going to be visiting those families, and they're going to go check out the chickens, check out what's going on, and however way we can continue to build that work, develop it, tweak whatever we need tweaked, and pray for the team, pray for our work, for Frontier Harvest Ministries. And we just want to thank everybody for all that you're doing. And thank you for praying, standing with us this whole time, all through all the years. We're going to keep going stronger than ever before. So scan that website, sign up to our monthly newsletter. And if you want to become a monthly donor, you can donate now, or a one-time donor. Scan that QR there. And we just thank you very much. God bless you. Again, this is a Frontier Harvest Ministries production. Apostles Corner, episode 129. God bless everybody. God bless.